I kind of want to. I want to share a couple of different directions this evening. But first of all, I'd like to just talk a little bit about not the situation in Israel right now, in the sense that you probably are aware of stuff from the news, and it's been a long journey. I remember when this war started, and I was there in Israel, and I remember them saying, this is going to be months, not days, or months, not weeks. We didn't realize it was going to be years, not months. And so it's basically Israel it's in mourning right now. It is, and yet it isn't. There is such a resilience in the Jewish people, and especially the Israelis. And with all of I'm sure you've seen all of the awful things of the hostages coming back, and how many of you saw the funeral procession of Shiri Bibas with the two little children that were murdered actually not long after they were taken to Gaza, but nobody knew. We didn't know if they were alive or dead, and it was just this little family unit, the mother and the two children, became like a symbol. And if you saw the funeral procession, there were thousands and thousands, and people were dressed in orange. Orange was the color, and partly because the little boys had orange hair. They would call them in Hebrew, they call them gingy. If you have, he's a gingy. So it's kind of funny. Anyway, so this precious family, and the father, Yarden, who was released probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, and he didn't know. Nobody knew, but we feared that they probably weren't alive. So he's come home, and his whole family's disappeared. And so the whole of the nation is gathering around him, and he's just speaking so many words of faith, and numerous stories of hostages, people that were not in any way people of faith or of relationship with God, and of really experiencing and having revelation, having a sense of God's presence with them. There's so many stories, and it would really warm your heart to know just what God is doing and continues to do. And so, I just wanted to open a little window to you tonight. Those of you, I think I mentioned last time I was here, ever since I've been in Israel, I've been working with a young man. His name is Gil, and we started doing things together about 13 years ago. And he is my Hebrew teacher, but he is a man full of faith. He's not a believer in Yeshua. His take on Yeshua is, we talk about, we're always praying for the Mashiach to come, and he says, well, when the Mashiach comes, we can ask him, have you been here before? And, it's really, it's exciting to walk alongside one another as an Orthodox Jew and a Christian, and to realize that there is the possibility of doing that in very deep ways. Really, it's so exciting. We host groups that come to Israel. So I've known him and his dear wife and their children. I would say they were a young family when I arrived. He only had 3, and then he ended up with 6. And the oldest one just began being in the IDF, in the army. So we just, it's really, it's not an easy time. I'd like to start, Sharon, if we could watch Hanan Banari. I just want to give you a little taste of the kind of music that comes out of Israel, the songs that are written from people that really love God. They don't know Yeshua, but they love God. And it's really amazing. But this song by a young man called Hanan Banari, he's modern Orthodox, and he writes songs that are they ask questions, they struggle, and they're very honest. And in this song, he's singing in Hebrew, but I've translated it so you can understand what he's singing. But he talks about being like a sea without a shore. It's that sense of, where's this all going? How do I get a grip on what's going on? He didn't write this since the war. He wrote it before the war. But I think it's just really speaks very much of probably the cry of many, many hearts right now in Israel. So we'll just watch that, and then we'll take it from there.
מי יודע כל כאב, מי רופא לי שבורי לב, יוצא אור החושך, עושה שלום ומלחמה. מי יושב על כיסא דין, מתכסה ברחמים, מוכן וסולח, מביט ויודע, ומי ירפא ליבי, אל מי אני מתגעגע, כמו ים שאין לו חוף, רק תגיד לי מי יחבק אותי, והבטיח שאני לא אכנע בסוף. מי היה עובר יהיה, מי ממית ומחיה, פותח ידיים, מצמיח כנפיים, ומי ירפא ליבי, אל מי אני מתגעגע, כמו ים שאין לו חוף, רק תגיד לי מי יחבק אותי, והבטיח שאני לא אכנע בסוף, שאני לא אכנע בסוף. אל מי אני מתגעגע, כמו ים שאין לו חוף, רק תגיד לי מי יחבק אותי, להבטיח שאני לא אכנע בסוף, שאני לא אכנע בסוף.
It's like the cry of a broken heart, isn't it? And it really says it all. When I was back I was in Israel. Well, I've been back a lot, but I was down at the site of the Nova Festival, you know, where so many of the young people were taken and killed. And I knew that it was one of the things I needed to do was to go and play my violin there. And so I did. And I just want to share with you the little video of when I did that. Unfortunately, there's rather a big sound of wind on the video, so you'll have to forgive that. But it was a very moving thing to do, and to go and be there and just to play. And I know that I'll be going back in about 3 weeks from now, and I know that people are grieving in a deep way. And I just would ask you to pray for me, actually, as I go back, because I have this sense, you know, when there's a lot of pain or a really bad situation, and you just kind of go, there are no words. There are no words. And a lot of Jewish music, and especially the Hasidic or the Haredi, the music of the Orthodox, are songs without words. They just go nai 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 nai, you know. And so, as I was thinking about this, that there are no words, I'm really asking the Lord, and He's starting to give me these melodies just for people to enter into and to sing, just nai nai nai, so that the expression of the heart and whatever's in the heart can really come out. And so I would appreciate your prayers as I do go back, and I sense that there'll be times there's going to be these events or evenings or meetings or whatever, and it's just going to be called Bli Milim, which means without words. There's enough words. We don't need any more words. We just need His presence, and to let Him touch the hearts. So anyway, this is me playing at the Nova Festival site. That's not. it was about 2 weeks ago. I asked my friend Gil if he could just give an update from his point of view. So what you're going to hear, I think you'll find very inspiring. It's obviously a bit out of date because things are changing all the time, and this is obviously since the mother and the two boys' bodies were returned. But let me introduce you to Gil Pansak, and I think let him just speak from the heart, and you'll see the depth. Hi, everybody. Ruth here, and with me is Gil Pansak, who many of you know already, as Gil and I have been working together for so long now. And but we find ourselves in the midst of probably the most excruciatingly painful time in the history of Israel, of the nation, since the Holocaust. And in a sense, it's very, very different because we are all invited into it somehow because of communication, and we can read about it and see about it, whether it's true news or whether it's fake news. We're being pulled into this whole scenario, and it's very, very hard to really get a handle on it and begin to understand it. But for those of you who are or have been following it, we find ourselves now, we've exceeded the 500 days of the war, and we're in the middle of this so-called ceasefire where hostages are being released back to Israel in exchange for huge amounts of Palestinian terrorists. And it all just seems so unreal and so unfair and so cruel. And so I wanted to ask Gil to, if you can, share your heart. Like, how is this? How is it for you? How is it for the nation? Try and invite us in.
Oof. Well, it's no problem to invite you in. I mean, it's as sad as it is to say. I mean, the door is open, and I think it's important that anybody who cares about Israel would walk in and be part of it. I know that there are a lot of people who have been praying for Israel, since the war started and even before that, and it's all very, very important, and we don't take it for granted. These prayers and these good intentions. It's very much heartwarming. It's a good opportunity to say thank you, from the bottom of my heart, personally, for all those who are taking the time to do so. So thank you, first of all. It's tonight is I'm not quite sure exactly when this will be when you will use this video, and things in Israel are happening so fast, and things are changing so fast. I mean, from in a couple of hours, I mean, the picture looks entirely different. There is a lot of uncertainty.
Well, the date now is Wednesday, 19th of February.
Yeah, that's important to say. So it's Wednesday, it's the February the 19th. In Israel right now, it's 9:45 in the evening. So that means that perhaps less than 12 hours from now, on Thursday morning, the way that according to the latest update, we will be receiving four dead bodies of hostages. According to what Hamas has to say, not that we ever believe what they have to say, but according to what they say, 3 out of the 4 are the Bibas family. It's the mother and 2 children, Shiri Bibas and her children, Kfir and Ariel. And they don't say anything about the 4th body. You can imagine the tension, of families not knowing what happened to their loved ones, not knowing when they're going to come back, all throughout, the current deal of returning 33 hostages, 25 alive and 8 dead hostages, all throughout this time. they always waited to the last minute to say exactly who is going to come back and when. It's psychological terror. Okay, it's another type, it's another form of terror, which is bad in its own. It's very, very difficult. And I think that when we speak about what we're going through at the moment, I think we need to divide it to two things. Many often I hear people talk about what is being done, and then the other person would say, so what do you think needs to be done? What do you think Israel should do? And I don't think that that's a right question to ask. I don't think it's a fair question to ask. I think that we can all talk about the general idea of what is it that we want, what is it that should happen, all the technicalities, the details of how to get to that point, we should leave that to the professionals. I mean, we need to leave it to the leaders. Okay, people who are dealing with it, the leaders in government, leaders in the military, leaders in governmental ministries. That's not ours to decide. I mean, what the thing is, but we can and we should, and we have every right to look at what is going on and to connect with what we know that God has to say about the situation. We have His word. I mean, and nothing that happens now, none of that is something that did not happen before. Okay, history. I mean, when we talk about, the biggest tragedy, the biggest massacre in our history, it's only the recent history of our history as a nation, or maybe the history, let's say, of 100 years or 150 years. But this is a nation that goes back 3,800 years, all the way back to Abraham, all the way back to Abraham. So 400 years in Egypt, being slaves in Egypt, with terrible persecutions, with our babies thrown into the Nile, all kinds of laws, to discriminate us. I mean, that's something that happened. We need to remember that. I mean, we always have our resources to go back to, and to see. So what happened there? I mean, what was the will of the Lord in those incidents, in those moments? And whenever we do this, we see that in such difficult times, it looks like there is a lesson that needs to be learned. And the lesson is not just for the Jewish people. The lesson is sometimes bigger than that. It's for the entire world. If we think about the Jewish people being saved, from Egypt, being delivered out of Egypt, that message is a universal message. It's the message about the words, "I am the Lord." It's a learning process that the entire world must go through, including ourselves. I am the Lord. So what does it mean? God says to Moses, there's a verse in Exodus 6, Exodus 6 verse 2, when it says, God spoke to Moses and he said to him, "I am the Lord."
Right.
I am the Lord. Forget about what you see in front of you. Forget about the earthiness of incidents. You've just now gone out from Pharaoh, and you told him, "Let my people go," and you thought that he will be impressed, by the signs and wonders that you're going to perform. And then he refused, and he made things worse for the people. The people are mad at you. Okay, I mean, I understand that on an earthy level. But God saying to him, "I am the Lord, and by my name, Lord, I did not show myself to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I was only known to them as God Almighty, as El Shaddai." The whole world is going to see a whole different God, a whole different level of him revealing himself. It's a different kind of revelation. It's something different. I am the Lord. It's about rules of nature changing, being broken, shattered, ignored, just for him to execute his will, to take out his children from a place of bondage, from a house of bondage. It's about that, and everything that has been going on with the Jewish people ever since is about projecting something, not just for us, but for the entire world. And that's why I said, the door is open. We are all in this learning process. You said, so what does it feel? Of course, it feels there's anxiety, there is tension, there is a lot of stress, there is pain, there is disappointment because we prayed and we hoped and we believed, and now to see that it's not exactly moving as we according to the plan that we had in our minds. But we all have to remember, it's in the end, it's all about the words, I am the Lord. There is a huge overall master plan for the entire world. The entire world. It's we say, when the days before Mashiach comes, we have a metaphor for that. It's like woman in labor. It's birth pangs. It's painful, but we must remember that new life is about to come from this pain. When Ezekiel is giving his metaphor, right? I passed by you and I saw you lying in your blood, and I told you, in your blood you shall live. In your blood you shall live. It's very much about birth. The woman is lying in blood, but new life, it's a sign of new life coming to the world. And it's not just an attempt to comfort ourselves, that this terrible situation we're in is actually a good sign and all. We know that it is. It must be, because we are in the hands of the Lord and He's all good. It's not always easy to see that. We have to believe in that. We're not just telling the story just to comfort ourselves. It is actually like that. When we look back at our history, and we see how one thing led to the next and one thing led to the next, and from the terrible catastrophe that happened in Europe 85 years ago, the birth of a Jewish nation came. Would we have had a country, a state, if it hadn't been for what happened? We don't know. We don't know. And it's not like we're saying, oh, good thing, 6 million lives. No, we never say that. It's not it. But we are, I think it's our duty to see how one thing leads to another, and one thing leads to another. When sometimes we can only do that when we look back. We can't do that, on the spot. I mean, right now, in the moment, we should feel the pain. We should shed a tear. We should, and we have to mourn for all the loss that we are experiencing, that we have been experiencing in this war. But still to remember that there is meaning to the whole thing. There is meaning. I am the Lord. The things don't just happen for no reason. And it's a learning process that we are going through, that the whole world is going through. And nobody said that fighting against darkness would be easy, that vanquishing evil from the world will be swift and painless. It's a process, but which we are being expected to do without feeling apologetic, ashamed, to say that we are fighting the darkness, physically fighting the darkness. And I think that tomorrow's events, this is Wednesday now, but talking about tomorrow's events and past week's events, the way we saw the hostages returning, and the whole show of humiliating them in front of the mob, standing on stages holding diplomas, and being given goodie bags from Gaza. It's low, and it's cruel, and it's brutal, and it's our responsibility to say that without apologizing, something that we cannot accept. And it's not about one's narrative, and it's not about the context, it's not about any of that. It's saying objectively what is right and what is wrong, what is considered to be light to the world, and what is considered to be the worst kind of darkness. And this is where we're at, more or less, to be able to differentiate. And I think it's an invitation for the rest of the world to do the same. Are we able to differentiate between the two, good and evil? Are we able to look at things and actually identify what is good and right and what is evil and wrong. That's more or less where we are at the moment.
And if I was to ask you, how can we best pray? Is it about entering into the suffering, or is it?
I don't think it's a well. I never say to one, how to pray. I mean, that's something very intimate and something that you should choose. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily entering into the suffering. There is reason. There is a reason why the suffering was given to certain people. So it's not about entering into the suffering. You don't have to feel it. You don't have to be persecuted to feel the solidarity. It's or to stand alongside us, in prayer. I think that there are a lot of things to pray for, but first and foremost is to pray that we have the strength to carry on, to go all the way with it, not to let go, not to give up, not to lose faith,
Right.
not to lose hope, to continue and see more and more the fulfillment, the realization of the words, I am the Lord. So that we really have the strength, because I'm telling you, it's strength is something you have a limited amount of it. When you talk about millions of people in your nation, and I'm saying this as a father of the children, you explain to them and you pray with them and you wish with them and you hope with them, but then when it doesn't happen, or like when the opposite happens, it creates a crack
Yes.
in faith, which is also maybe considered to be a positive thing, because that's when we are being tested. But just to pray for strength, pray for wisdom for our leaders mainly, so that they will have the wisdom and the bravery, the courage, to really live up to the expectation that our Father in heaven has for us. I think that would be the most accurate way to pray.
Thank you, Gil. And just want to assure you that, but so many are praying and really holding you in our hearts. So, yeah, thank you for the reminder. I am the Lord.
Thank you.
That's so great.
Thank you.
Okay, bless you and saying goodbye.
Thank you. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. So we all know how to pray now. Yeah, just pray for this man. He's very, very special, I believe. I believe that God has really called him. I mean, beyond what he's talking about there, but just in his, he has a huge gift of teaching and of, yeah, he's really, really precious person. I think I don't want to go on for much longer, but what I'd like to do is to just give you a little bit of a teaser for tomorrow night. I'm happy to share about a new piece that I've written called Creation. And any of you who follow me on Facebook or something, you've probably seen about that. But creation was the thing that it's Genesis 1 to Genesis 2, verse 3. So basically the first 7 days. And it was crazy getting this commission from the Lord, because he's asking me to write or to create a piece of music about the creation. I mean, how do you even do that? Those of you who know classical music, there's a wonderful classical piece by Joseph Haydn, was written in the early 1700s or mid 1700s, and called Creation, and it's fantastic. So first of all, I felt very like, oh, come on, he's already done it. I don't need to do this. And but I really felt that he was asking me to do it, and so I was asking him how this would look. What is this piece that he's asking me to do? And so I I thought and I prayed about it, and then it was like God sort of gave me the template for creating it, and I'll share about that tomorrow. And also, I think there's another little video where Gil is talking about each day of creation, but I was going to just talk about what about before he started, before day one, before in the beginning. What beginning? Beginning of what? There were things already there. So it's we can talk about that a little bit tomorrow. But I'd like to just share two things with you now. One is that after I finish writing the piece has, each day of creation has two parts. And the first part of each day is the text. And it's the text exactly as it would be sung in a synagogue, an Ashkenazi synagogue, which means sort of Western European. And so they have different melodies for when they're singing the scriptures. They have a different melody than, say, the Sephardic Jews, who it's kind of similar, but it's a bit more oriental. And so the beginning of each day is that feeling, and I used that. I had Gil sing the whole thing for me, and so then I took it down, and then I created an accompaniment to those parts that would be sung. But then the second part of each day is sort of where I came into it, and I felt that the Lord was saying, just respond musically to what happened on each of those days. So there would be probably something that really really grabbed my imagination. And, you can imagine the first, on the first day when God says, let there be light. And I thought, well, that's clearly an explosion. And so it's literally like the choir and the orchestra, and they're just going crazy, and there's all this, it's like notes scattering out into the atmosphere. So that's that one. And there's another moment that really caught my imagination. It's when the grass begins to grow, or when the little seeds and things like it growing up. And I'd recently seen, or I'd heard actually about quite a lot of years ago, and I checked it out again, of experiments that have been done on plants when they're growing. Anybody seen any of these? They attach these little electric nodes onto the plants, and they make kind of like. Well, what they've also done is that they have attached the plants not just to a microphone, but they've attached it to a keyboard, sort of like that. And then you put the keyboard on a certain on a certain pad or whatever, and then it makes music. It's really amazing. But a simple one, for instance, instead of the little click in, you'd hear wah 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 wah. I mean, it's just like, it was really fun getting the choir to do this. Wah, 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 wah. Well, how many wah, wah, wahs do you want? No, we just do it till you feel it. Wah, 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 wah. It's over, So it was a really creative process of recording this. I recorded it a couple of years ago in Slovakia, in Bratislava. And so then when it was all done, and the text obviously was being sung in Hebrew, so I thought, well, if I play the piece to you all, and it's just, you're listening to it, and it's all in Hebrew, you're not going to understand a word. So I was thinking something else needs to happen. So I realized that I was going to have to create like a film to go with it. But I knew what I didn't want. I didn't want a National Geographic film of creation. I didn't want anything like that. I wanted, if we imagine creation, if you imagine the first day in the beginning, I'm sure for each one of us sitting in this room, you have a different image, or maybe you don't have an image. You just have dark or water sort of I don't know what you think. So I was thinking, what am I going to do? What kind of thing do I want? And then I realized that it was going to have to be art. And then I remembered a really good friend, actually, that I've worked with quite a lot over the years. He used to get up on stage and paint while I was leading worship with my team. And his name's Kevin Moffat. He lives in, I think he's in Maine or somewhere around there. And I keep losing track of him because I knew him first in Vermont. And I just, yeah. And we were just together up in New Hampshire. And so I really thought, Kevin's the one to be doing this. So anyway, I contacted Kevin, and it was like he said he knew his answer was yes before I even asked him. So it was really interesting. And I say the most important thing is to give me paintings where you're not telling me what they are. It's not a matter of which day it is. It's a place to rest our eyes while we're listening. And so that's, it's really like a musical meditation. So you could read Genesis 1 to chapter 2, verse 3. You could read it in a minute and a half. Or if you're feeling particularly meditative, you might take 5 minutes to read it. But this actually forces us to spend the time, because the piece is about an hour long. And so the art is just it's like an opening. And so it's very abstract, and it's done in with a particular style of painting or a method of painting called flow. And some of you who are artists, you might have heard of it. But Kevin he did a little 1 minute video, which I'd like to show you right now. And the paintings that you're seeing aren't all the ones that ended up being in the piece, but it's just have a watch, and it's all sped up. So there we go. Okay, so it gives you sort of an idea yeah, Kevin's really he just loves the spontaneous, and so getting up and while we're worshiping and just painting is totally in his style. But it's what's been really difficult is that he started producing these paintings at such a rate that I haven't been able to keep up with them. And then he's still, I said, I probably just want about 12. I don't want it constant. I don't, the whole idea is that we enter into a place of really meditating on God's word. And so he just sent me another one, yes, like 3 days ago. And I'm going, no, I have to change the film. It's obviously, it's in the creative process. It's in process right now. And it's going to change a lot, I think. We've got a lot of paintings, and I'm looking for, right now, to work with someone who can take it much further than I've done in terms of the putting it all together. But we do. I have done it, and there is a film, and you can watch it, and you can. We've got some outside there. But I'll just show you the trailer, so you just have a little sense. But a lot of the paintings aren't on this because I made it about 2 months ago. But anyway, it'll give you an idea, and an idea of some of the music. It's just just goes fast through it. This is just to give you an idea of the sound of the Hebrew part, which is the beginning of every day, but you're just going to hear it a little bit from day one. So anyway, we'll listen to a little bit more tomorrow, just so you can get a bigger feeling of a whole day, or maybe a couple of the days. But if you want the whole thing, it's out on the table out there. And well, it's been great being with you tonight. There's so much more to share. But anyway, we can continue tomorrow. So thank you. Thanks for coming.